Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monster Report, a show highlighting those entertaining creatures of film history. And Happy New Year. This is Nick Adam Poling, your host. And with this new year, 2022, it's an exciting time to be a collector of Masters of the Universe. So I figured we'll have a little discussion here at the beginning of this new year about MOTU collecting and what it's all about and what can you do to get into it and where other collectors have been. So I've got some guests who are going to be arriving into the stream in just a minute, but I want to make sure everyone knows the Monster Report's a show here on YouTube, and we also have a podcast. Catch us on Facebook, Twitter, all those good things, and obviously subscribe to us on YouTube, and we're glad to have you. We are at 76,000 plus subscribers, and we hope that you'll be a subscriber too if you are not already. So hit that subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with what's going on. And I'm going to bring in my first guest today. We've got Mr. Jonathan Barnhart. How you doing, Jonathan?
Doing all right.
Doing all right. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And with Christmas out of the way, did you happen to get a Christmas haul of any kind of collectibles this year?
Well, I mean, I got a few things. And we're the little group that I run on Facebook. It's kind of a geek group. We did like our Secret Santa swap kind of thing. And I got a few things for that. And a buddy of mine sent me a bunch of stuff. It wasn't really per se a Christmas gift so much as it was one of those things where he grabbed stuff that he could get where he was at that I couldn't get where I'm at. So, this is one of the things that was in that pile.
Oh, the Landshark. Okay, yeah.
There's 4 figures that I got 2 at the same time that are some of the newer wave figures, including that Lords of Power Beastman and the Green Goddess that they did. So I've got those, but I've already cracked those open, and they're sitting in the vault with the rest of the stuff. So
nice.
But
okay.
The little Secret Santa thing. And this is one of those things that I thought was odd. I never got into collecting new adventures, and one of the things that the guy sent me in that was it was a carded Quake from New Adventures. The only thing that's really wrong with it is the plastic bubble on it's broken. It just one of those things where plastic got brittle and cracked. But other than that, it's almost a perfect carded figure. And I was just like, well, I guess I'll collect New Adventures now.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the eras that I want to talk about as well. I figured we kind of go back in time. Here in a few, we'll get to the kind of like, I guess, a chronological way of collecting and figure out where we kind of are with collecting. And so, since you're my first guest, and hopefully we'll have Yuri at some point on here. We didn't have him last time, but hopefully we'll get him on here this time. And Everett might be joining us here shortly. If nothing else, it'll be you and I. So
okay.
Tell me, and as far as your background of MOTU collecting, where did it start? What sparked your interest? And, let me know where it went from there.
This is kind of odd, but like I was 7 years old and I started having some weird medical problems. I was having like joint pains and stuff. And what they finally figured out is I had one leg that was growing faster than the other. And because of that, I kept having to go to the doctors over and over and over and over. And where I live here in this little rural area, there's not much. But you go across the river and there's a town called Cape Girardeau over in Missouri. And they had a mall. And one of the things that we always ended up doing while we were over there for doctor's appointments was going to the mall. And so the first time I ever saw Masters of the Universe was in a KB toy store over there. And that was before there was even like commercials or cartoons or anything. And I remember seeing these muscle-bound, kind of swords and sorcery-looking dudes and thinking, these are awesome. I want these. And my mom instantly hated them. She thought they were the ugliest thing ever because she never liked the muscle-bodied, bodybuilder types. She always hated the raised veins and all that. And so she saw those, and that's what she saw. And she was like, these are ugly. These are hideous. And eventually I just kept on. And for my birthday that I don't think it was that year. I think it was like closer to like me being like 9. She got me He-Man and Battle Cat, the packaged box. And, people are always like, what's your grail item? What's your grail item? But if I could do it again, I would get that boxed, the original boxed, which, yeah, I can't afford one right now. But that's how I got in. Me and my brother, we collected, like every time one of our birthdays came around, somebody was sending us birthday cards with like $5 bill in it. $5 bill, it's a He-Man figure. Because back in those days, He-Man, single figures were $5. So
That's right.
we
Yeah.
had a lot of that. We didn't have a lot of the play sets. And, around the time that the movie came out, and somewhere in there, I was getting older and things just didn't look as good to me anymore, and I kind of quit. And so, I don't know, probably about 8 years back, I just decided, I kept seeing stray He-Man figures in yard sales, and I was just like, that's it. I'm going to get back into collecting that, because I'd been collecting the new Star Wars figures at the time pretty hot and heavy, and I was just like, these aren't doing it for me anymore. And I sold off almost all of my Star Wars figures to a buddy of mine that is a Star Wars collector and does a lot of like wheeling and dealing and trading. He's almost, one of these kind of toy dealer guys now. And I took the money and I started putting it in, and I got back into it, and I've not stopped since. I just keep going.
Yeah. Well, and so you kind of have, like I did, a lull of collecting.
Yeah, it really was. I remember when the not New Adventures, they did the anniversary set, and I looked at the anniversary set and I thought, well, those are neat, but I already have those figures, so I didn't really buy in. And I regret not buying in on those, because those are such a hard to get item now. They're expensive. I've got a few of those, but the packaging on them is like really cool. And I bought He-Man when they brought out, the series in the 2000, era. They put that first one out that actually had the Iron Cross symbol on it, and then went to the He-Man symbol. I grabbed up the one with the Iron Cross on it, because that was, that was iconic to me. That was kids. That was what I was rooted in. Grabbed that, and I didn't grab any more of the 2000 series stuff after that. I grabbed that one because that's what I wanted. And then later on, I've gone back and bought several of those from that series here and there where I could afford to. But, it just, there was this big period of time where some of it was being interested in other things. Some of it was having money tied up in other things. And some of it was just not feeling like anything was really going on with it. And yeah, I came back to it. And when I got back into it, I've not stopped since.
And so you said it was about 7 when you got into it. I'd say it was about that same time that I had gotten into it, except for you probably started collecting predating the Filmation series when it was just a toy line.
That's when I was interested in it. That's when I first started seeing it. I think I was closer to 9 when I got the first ones.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted it. I wanted it bad. And when they first started showing the commercials, that sold it even more to me, because to me the commercials were more like the swords and sorcery stuff at the time that you were seeing, like the Conan movies and things like that. Again, these are things that I wanted to watch, but my mom was always like, no, we're not watching that. And my dad, sometimes he would watch some of these things, and we would be able to watch them with him. But mom totally would not watch anything like swords and sorcery. She wouldn't watch anything sci-fi or horror or anything. And that was the kind of stuff I loved and still love. So
yeah, I remember the Conan series, but the television versions of it. So it was, the violence was not in there.
they cut a lot out.
R stuff about it, so it was made for TV.
Well, like me, I can remember there being a lot of things that I watched on TV, and people are like, "Oh yeah, but you didn't see the good parts because they cut them out." So then, you get a little older, and those days, you get to the point where you can drive. You go over to the video store and you rent, a bunch of movies, and you go home and you sit and pop them in the VCR, and you're like, wow, this is totally different.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so He-Man was kind of that answer to it. It's like, we're not going to make a rated R, toy line on Conan, but maybe we could make a whole new series that's similar to it with the swords and sorcery. And Yeah, for me, it was Filmation that brought it to me. I mean, I was born in '81, so '83, I think, is when the Filmation series came out. So it was, I was still too young at that time, but I definitely remember, in syndication, 5, 6, somewhere around there, 7 years old. It's on in the mornings before school and before
Yeah.
kindergarten and preschool and things like that, and watching it on the Saturday mornings. And so the Filmation series did it for me. And I always love getting them for Christmas, the toys for
Oh
Christmas.
yeah.
Well, and my parents caught on to something because I always knew based on the wrapping that's a He-Man figure sitting under the tree, So they caught on to that, and so started like putting something else in there so it didn't look like the carded packaging. So they caught on to me figuring out. But yeah, the vintage line, which is funny that it's considered vintage, making us feel older. I guess that's why part of Grumpy Old Geek Codgers, right? So
yeah. Well, I was born in 75, so, I grew up in the 80s, and I start talking about the 80s like it was yesterday, and kids start looking at me like, oh, you old fart. What are you talking about? Go away, old man.
Well, it's like, but those toys, everything from the 80s is coming back. So
apparently
there was a golden age of toy collecting and media content. They're remaking a little bit of everything from our childhood.
Well, I think about how, like, when we were kids, like, clear up into the middle of the part of the 80s, you could still find toys from the 70s on shelves because they produced toys entirely differently back then. They made a toy line and they just kept making the same figures over and over and over and putting them out. Now it's like we put out this wave and we might like run 2 more printings of it and then we're done.
Yeah.
And they force collectability on people these days. Whereas then, you could buy a figure that was start of the line, and that line started 5 years ago at the end of the line, still on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
When they killed the original line of He-Man figures, I can remember being in a Kmart that year before Christmas, and there's just one whole wall of this aisle that was nothing but He-Man figures on card, singles. And it was everything from the original line all the way up. So,
Yeah, like now they want you to get a wave in, and then they want that off the shelf so they can make shelf space for the new stuff or a different line or whatever. Like I remember, even now I'm seeing, like, not to jump ahead a little bit, but now we're getting Origins and Masterverse, and I'm slowly kind of seeing some of those Origins condensed so that they can make room for that CGI Netflix series, not Revelation, but the other
kids line.
The kids line. So, but I'll probably get some flack for this. Sorry, people, but I've noticed that the Origins were selling, and I noticed there's a lot still on the shelf. I don't know about your guys' area, but on this area, a lot still on the shelf of that CGI series. It's just not selling.
Well, the problem I had is we only have the one Walmart just right here in town with us. Okay. I go out to that Walmart when they started saying, well, the first year of Origins is exclusive to Walmart. We're going to have it in Walmart. So you expect that it's going to be in every Walmart across the United States. I walk in there when they started hitting the shelves. They hadn't reset the shelf. It wasn't there. And I was like, well, I guess we're not, maybe, they're dragging behind. They never, during that first year of exclusivity, they never had it on the shelf out here at the Anna store that I'm at. And then that next year, they finally put the Masters of the WWE Universe line on the shelf out there. And that had been out on shelves for probably at least a year or two prior to that. Well, just right as I'm getting regular shipments of that and buying that, they pulled that off the shelf and put Origins on the shelf, but all they would put on the shelf was He-Man Skeletor.
Right.
That's it. Yep. And we never got anything. And they were like, well, why isn't it selling? Well, because, there's been over a year of this in sales, and everybody that wanted this guy and He-Man has already bought them, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and don't need anymore, don't want it anymore. But we'd not had it in that store hardly at all. We finally got the a flocked panther on the shelf in there. We got the Revelations Battle Cat, and we had Revelations He-Man and Skeletor for a little bit, and the rest of it has been that new line for that new CGI series. And they're trying hard to sell it to kids, and I think the problem that they really have in all of this is that, honestly, I don't think kids really buy action figures or toys that much these days. Adults will buy them. Adults will buy them for their kids. But kids, in general, are looking for things like this.
That's right.
You know,
yeah.
They want to play with phones. They want to play with tablets. They don't.
Yeah. Speaking of kids, just briefly, since they're clamoring to be on camera, here's a few of my kids, and I'll introduce them, and then I'll send them back. And we also have Yuri that's going to add to the stream. Hello, Yuri.
Hey, Yuri.
How's it going?
Oh, great. Good to have you. And we were just going to introduce my kids, and I'm going to send them packing here. But I've got Eli, if you've seen Eli on the Monster Report, a few episodes, and in fact, today we're in the studio because we've got some unboxing to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What
Right.
particularly, name one figure you're going to be unboxing today? Grimlock from the Transformers 86 film. So that's one of our other favorite IPs out there, his Transformers. We like Godzilla, we like Masters of the Universe, and we like Transformers. What else do we like? Lots.
I don't really know.
We like Kirby. It's Kirby from Nintendo. Yeah, we're a big fan of that too. And so here's Ellie. She's been on a few episodes of the Monster Report too. There's Jonathan and there's Yuri. Say hi to them.
Hi.
And where's Deborah?
Hi.
Well, she's watching TV.
She's watching TV.
Yeah,
okay.
Mom.
That's okay. If she wants to come down and say hi real quick, she can.
Okay.
All right. Okay. You guys have wait, Deborah, come in.
Bye.
So, yeah, the toys. It's all about the kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yuri, good to have you, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
There you are. Okay, we can hear you all right. So, Yuri, you've been a MOTU fan for a while. We just were talking about what sparked our interest initially, originally into MOTU collecting. Give me your story right after I introduce Deborah here. Sorry. We're doing this kind of out of order. I'm sorry.
All right.
It's chaos. It's utter chaos here on the Monster Report. Deborah, say hi to Yuri and Jonathan.
Hi.
Hi.
And we're going to unbox some stuff later too, right?
Yeah, like
All kinds of stuff. We've got all kinds.
random.
Randor, yeah, we got the classics Randor. We've got tons of a backlog of collectibles that I've just not had the chance to do box days with. So we're here in the studio today, and we're gonna get these things unboxed and on the shelf, right?
Yes.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna keep talking to these gentlemen in the live stream, so you can get back to that, and I'll get back to this. All right. We'll see you guys. Oh, and Allie wants to show you what she's gonna unbox. So we've got the Origins Mosquitor in the deluxe. And I forget where we found this. You remember? It was a Target, I think.
I think.
Yeah, probably. So she's real excited to get Mosquitor out.
I think it was Walmart or Target.
Might have been, yeah. So here you go. You put that back and we'll get back to Yuri. So Yuri, your MOTU collecting story. Start way back or wherever it took you.
Oh, geez. Well, it was really early on. I mean, I was pretty much a baby, and my mom picked him up for me. He-Man and Skeletor, and it just went on from there with the coloring books and the cartoon, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is you go way back with the vintage line.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Very early 80s.
All right. Well, so let's kind of go back with, the different lines. I'm bringing up my show notes here so I can we've been going out of order and I apologize for that, guys, but we'll get back onto our show notes. So going way back to the vintage line, we had the carded figures, we had vehicles, we had play sets. And so, talk about, what that was kind of like being able to collect that and how it differs from the lines kind of went forward. I'll kind of start with what I remember. I remember obviously the Grayskull's playset and the vehicles like the Landshark, of course, having that, and Battle Bones. I'd love to see a Battle Bones reimagined in Origins line and having all of those. I especially remember the vintage line having the waist rubber band, so you could have the fighting action and you can spring them forward. And, they don't do that in the Origins line, unfortunately, but Super 7, when they were doing that line, did some of that too. So, and they didn't do it in Classics either. So, but that was something about the vintage line, I guess I always remember about them. And I also remember the just the paint on it, the way it just looks a little different now in Origins and some of the others. Maybe it's just time, time fades the paint and things like that, and maybe my memory of it is a little different, but it seems like now the paint is a lot brighter, but maybe it's because it's new. And of course I also remember, at least correct me if I'm wrong, some of the figures having metal, like some die cast, not all entirely plastic. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan. People like some of the characters like Triclops. Did I remember him actually having being made with some die-cast metal?
I don't remember there being any kind of die-cast stuff in it. I know they have an internal spring in them, and that's generally about all the metal that they have in them, as far as I recall.
Okay.
I do know that there were some oddball.
He-Man.
Yeah, Thunder Punch has the metal parts in him where it makes the cap function work.
Okay.
The backpack on that pops open and you pop in a ring cap, and it's got a metal fitting for that. And yeah, there's die cast parts there. But most of them are plastic. I know there's some weird oddball things in some of the foreign versions, because they weren't just made in one specific plant. They were made in like 6 or 7 different countries. And I know like there were some French ones made where the boots are, instead of you having just the normal booted foot that's like one whole leg part, when you come down to where the top of the boot would be, there's like a separation there, and there's a peg that comes down from what would have been the top of the leg, and the whole boot assembly was like a synthetic rubber that they printed that went over it. I've only seen it a couple of times, and like I said, from what I understood, it was only just made in the French plant, but I don't own one either. And from what they said, it's kind of hard to get one in good shape because that synthetic rubber degrades.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. While you're still kind of going on with the vintage line there, any other things that made the vintage line unique?
Like I said, I still think it's interesting that, like, now the difference between what then and now is, as far as like then figures and stuff that was produced in the original line, the first year of the line, you were still able to buy the last year of the line, and it went as long as it did. And toy lines these days, you're lucky if you get a couple of years out of a toy line, and they always want to do it in quick waves. Here's a wave, get it, and if you don't, you missed it. Now you got to go to the scalper market.
Right.
So
yeah,
I don't really enjoy that aspect of it, because that they're feeding the collector market, and I know they think that that's how they sell stuff, but it's hard for some collectors to keep up, and they bow out because of it.
I know. It's like, right now, it's like if you didn't get there on the day that they put them on the shelves, and like my Walmart, for instance, if they are lucky to get wave, I think we're up, I did see one of wave 6 in there, and it was that one. So they probably put out the entirety of wave 6, but somebody nabbed up the first 3, and I got one of them. So it was like, okay, that's probably the last I'm going to see them of my Walmart. So I'll probably have to venture far and wide to Targets and Walmarts everywhere else, or like you said, the scalper market or a collectible toy store where the price is going up.
And what I was going to say there is, like, if you're like me, where the store here local to me just doesn't carry it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have to make, legitimately like at least a half-hour trip to get to a place that's carrying it. So if I am, you're talking about it, you got to be there when it hits the shelf. There's very little likelihood I'm there when it hits the shelf because of that half-hour trip. And I just don't have the time to be making those kind of trips every day, through the week to check for that kind of stuff. So,
yeah. Yuri, talk about the unique aspects or something special about the vintage series that you hold near and dear.
It's like each character had their own little gimmick. They're made them unique for playing with. That, I mean, my biggest memory of them is I was at the right age that I got to play with all of them, and really, take them out in the dirt and have them fight. And I love the spring at the waist there where they could punch. One of my favorites was always Mosquito and the little pump on his back and the blood that would run down, and everybody had their own little thing, and it was so much fun. It was fun.
And the fact that the Filmation series didn't have a character in their series for every toy that was made, so the toys were definitely had their own kind of story within themselves, and it was the one that you made while playing.
Exactly. Create your own story. And they always come with little comic books too that kind of give you a little introduction, so you kind of get a little bit of a backstory going.
Yeah, between that and the the I guess the picture book series or whatever it was put out by there was the Don Glut, I know, put out his series of books, and then there was some other coloring books and things like that, so there were kind of different universes of MOTU. And so yeah, that was always interesting. And when it was on the Filmation series or whatever, and you were like, oh, I got that toy, and it's just exciting for you. But not all of the toys ended up in that. But then later, of course, we might have seen them in either the 2000X series or the Revelation series or anything like that. So going forward from vintage, I'm trying to think what would be the next in line. There were the very regimented how they released the series as it was going before it kind of crashed. I guess the next series probably would have been the 86 movie, if I'm not mistaken. That would have probably been before New Adventures, correct?
Yeah, what they did was they turned out 3 figures for that? Yeah. 3 figures, but they were on the original vintage card. And it's scary because I remember when I got back into collecting, they were expensive already to get. But I can remember when the movie flopped, those just bins of them sitting in KB Toy Store on clearance, and me going, I don't want them. I had lost interest at that point. And I think back to myself going, that was a dope. I should have bought those. It's one of those like moments in time where if you had a time machine, you go back and buy a crap load of them and, haul them back and go, hey, look what I got, But
yeah. Kicking yourself. But
yeah. Well, the thing is like the line died here, and they had some on some characters and stuff they designed that they wanted to produce. They had the molds for them, and they're like, well, we're not going to make any more in the United States, but we'll make a few for one more year in Europe. And so there's those 2 giants and the 2 light up figures. Yeah, that was it. There was the 2 giants and the 2 light up figures. Those were made in Europe only. Well, they weren't buying them over there either. So like in the 90s when eBay comes along, they still got bins of these things sitting around on clearance, and the guys over there are selling them to the Americans through eBay and making a fortune off of them. And now they really are like expensive figures. You get a carded lighted figure and you're talking probably $200-$300, maybe more. And like a boxed giant figure in good shape is probably, a couple $1,000.
Yeah,
they're expensive.
Do either of you own anything from that 86 movie line, the original? I know Yuri at least got one that I know.
Yeah, I've got Keldor and Blade.
Okay. Yeah,
I've got Keldor and Blade, and I've got Sorod, and the Sorod that I got still sparks. I don't play with it a lot. They're all kind of sitting up in little cases on shelves, but yeah, I finally did get all of them. It took me a while.
Yeah, they're like you said, they're expensive and even loose. I found them expensive.
Well, that was one of my strategies for getting the collection was like I was buying everything loose, but a lot of times I was buying like loose and complete. And you try and get the best deal you could on this part and then the best deal you could on this part until you've got everything together as a complete one. Like Blade took me a while because I got Blade, but then it took me a while to get the 2 swords he came with. So, you know, piece here, piece there, and eventually you get it together. And there was some instances where even I ended up taking 2 or 3 broken figures and cobbling them together into one good figure and things like that. So
yeah, the time is they're getting older, and I guess, you know, just if you're able to find any kind of those figures from that time period and they're still in good shape, yeah, good luck. And otherwise, you might be doing some repairs. You might be calling Jonathan up to do the repairs if you don't know how to do those. I actually dabbled in the rubber, the waistbands. There's actually a company that will sell those. I think I had to get them from Europe or something. And to be able to look like little dumbbells and
I haven't bought any of those yet. When I got started, those didn't exist. And so all like leg band repairs were the old O-ring and metal screw eyelets trick. And I was doing that and people were complaining about me. And I'm like, well, what else are you going to do with them? Because at the time that didn't exist. And, you know, it was, you could put them in a little display case sitting on what's their crotch section with 2 broken legs hanging, you know, sitting to the sides of them. And, you know, like, oh, I got it. It's complete. Looks like crap, but here it is, you know.
Right. New adventures. I can tell you safely, except with the exception of classics versions of the New Adventures, I have nothing from that New Adventures series, but I'm wondering if I'll ever get into that. Either of you gentlemen gotten into New Adventures collecting?
I hadn't, and for the most part, when I saw New Adventures, to me it wasn't He-Man, and I didn't collect it. And like I said, I was a young, opinionated teenager, and I just straight up like, no, that's not He-Man, and I just walked away from it. I think I was actually collecting more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff at the time, but you know, and that's not to say that I won't collect it. In the past, I always just straight up said no, I won't collect it. But I got one in the Secret Santa thing this year, and you know, it's kind of sparked my interest. I might buy a few more here and there, but you know, that's starting to get expensive to buy too.
Who was that in the Secret Santa gift that you got?
It was Quake.
Okay.
And it's on card, and it's in some of the pictures I sent you too. It's kind of hard to see maybe because of the lighting in there. I need to get some better lighting in the vault in there. But the only thing that was really wrong with the card on that, the plastic that they use from the bubble is a kind that will start to biodegrade under UV light. So it's gotten yellow and brittle, and chunks broke out of it. Other than that, it's complete. Even the peg hole is still, you know, it's been punched with the little thing that they used to use, the little hand tool they used to use to punch those holes, but the tab is still there. It's not been popped out. So I don't know. It was really kind of amazing. Like we set like a $10 to $15 limit, I think is what we set on, you know, gifts, and I get that, and 3 of the little minifigures that they're selling right now. They were Revelations characters, and I was kind of blown away by, you know, finding that card in there. I'm like, whoa, wait.
Yeah, not bad. Yuri, anything New Adventures?
There you go. At the time, I didn't pick any up. I remember seeing them in stores and being like, what the crap's going on here? You know,
That's what I
in
did.
space. But I think I have Skeletor. I don't remember where I've got him sitting around here because, you know, everybody's got to have Skeletor. But that's the only one that I got out of that line.
Okay. I'm still on the lookout because that one thing that I kind of fondly remember was the sword. Only reason is because the sword was in the stores and we fought each other, you know, down the aisles with that sword.
Well, you know, and it makes light and sound, you know, that gets fun. And and I've seen that several times in a box and thought about it, but like almost every time I see it in box, it's pretty pricey to buy. And
Yeah.
that reminds me, they had a light up power sword from the vintage line. It had a black plastic handle and a yellow blade. And I have been looking high and low to try and find one of those in decent shape that I could afford, and it's not panned out yet either.
Yeah. I remember an old plastic sword of the Thundercats sword, what the
Yeah.
Sword of Omens, and plastic, and it was I remember it was edged. You know, it had this wide edge, so it couldn't be, even as a plastic thing, it's not going to be sharp. But even then, it was just safety was the big thing about that.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of a large sword for a little kid, but it had the eye of thunder and everything in there. So yeah, but I always did remember running around the aisles with that light up sword. That's about the only thing that maybe I wouldn't mind having from New Adventures.
That was another thing that Mom never liked getting us was toy swords, because she was just so certain that we would not only like beat each other up with them, but with somebody would like put out an eye, playing that way.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything between New Adventures and Classics. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but
they did the anniversary line, and then after the anniversary line, then you go to the 2000 series before Classics.
That's right, the 2000 series. So and that's one thing that I'll be getting into collecting at some point is the 2000X. I've been kind of migrating things in my office, so I decided not to get quite into that, but there's a lot of them out there still that you can
and
find.
You can find a lot of them on cards still. Sometimes reasonable prices, sometimes crazy, but not bad.
Yuri has got a pretty good, decent amount of 2000X series, right?
Yep, sure do.
Yeah. Are you going to be a completionist with that series?
Probably not. Maybe eventually. I don't know. I'm not going to say never, but I picked up the ones that I really wanted, and then of course when you got down to it, and you got down to like the Snake Man waves and stuff like that, I couldn't find anything locally around here. They wound up on clearance somewhere else that I just couldn't find.
Yeah, and what was cool about that is they started making the characters that I assume they made the Man-at-Arms Snake Man, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah,
with the snake armor and everything.
Right, but that would have been something that would have taken place after the series was essentially canceled, right? As far as the story goes.
Well, the Snake Men were in there. They made it to the Snake Men, but they didn't make it to like Hordak or the Evil Horde or anything like that.
Yeah.
Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the last season of that was the Snake Men, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they were suggesting Hordak too in the background because they were talking about that being part of the original war between Eternia and the Snake Men. And they kept hinting at him like, oh, this is good. We're going to crack him out anytime now. And then nothing, because they ended up canceling before they could or did.
Which is so sad, because there could have been a really interesting story going forward with that. So I know at least with, like, they made a Snake Man, Snake Woman, Tila, but in the show, they got to that point, but she didn't end up remaining.
And the other thing too that they did there is there were some exclusive figures that they turned out, because there is a 2000 series version of She-Ra in box that came from I think that was SDCC, San Diego Comic Con, and we've got that here. I bought it for my daughter because she got into She-Ra while I was starting to collect He-Man again. And so I've got the box one set up protected for her, and she had a loose one that I gave her, so that she had one she could play with. And that actually has combable hair, kind of like the old She-Ra dolls did.
Okay.
But
did that happen to end up in any of those pictures you sent me?
It may be, but it may be hard to see because I was taking big shots of shelves and stuff.
Yeah. That's okay. I'll get to your pictures later. We've got a really good setup of collection of Jonathan's collection, personal collection, and or more like museum when I look at it, and because it's vast. So yeah, it's something that it's a sight to behold. But I was kind of looking through it. I didn't see anything specific. But yeah, that's the exclusives for that. So there were some rare ones, and I think this is the first time we got at least an Atom that was not just a remolded He-Man.
That Atom figure is actually really nice in that 2000 series because not only is it Atom, but like the sword transforms when he goes to the transformation stage in that cartoon. So the sword changes shape, and so not only then does Atom look like Atom and not like He-Man in a Atom suit, he also has what is looking like a different sword entirely. So he's like completely and totally disguised as a character. He just looks like he has this interesting sword. And, you'd think, well, he's a nobleman, so maybe that's why he's got an interesting sword, and you play it off. But when he transforms to He-Man, the sword changes shape, so you can set the two of them together and see the change from one to the other, and it's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I don't know if that Atom figure is hard to come by. I really haven't looked too much for it, but I don't know if it's a rarity or not.
I don't think it's hugely rare, but it was, like I said, it was nice to have that difference. So
okay, and as far as the next, I guess would be when they started getting into classics, and this is something that I really latched onto as a collector. I was a big fan of classics, not when it was coming out, unfortunately. It's more of a more recent thing that I've gotten into them just because of how it's kind of built for the adult collector, and being able to see some of the characters that either maybe weren't fully imagined or we didn't get a figure of in one way, shape, or form. So and even weird characters that we would have never even thought of, like background characters in the artwork. I mean, things like that. But was a big fan of seeing the fact that more of the 86 movie characters came out in classics. And then when Matty Collector was doing them, and then Super 7, which is kind of still doing them. And the fact that we got some more of the 86 line in classics, and doing a really great job of putting those together, and seeing them just a little bit larger than the old carded figures. And it's also funny to see the fact that classics has, like, now you've got such a price difference between certain ones. It's crazy. Some of them you can find real cheap at even the collectible toy stores for $20 or whatever. I don't know how many Dariuses they have there that they're pretty much they've got so many that they can discount them. And then like He-Man, that one, I forget how much that's going for, but yeah, some of the more rare ones that are kind of like holy grails almost of figures. So it is kind of neat to see that, and they become kind of a treasure hunt if you're finding them in the wild in different toy stores like this. Obviously you can go online and buy them and pay extra for shipping and things like that, but tell me kind of your reactions to classics. Yuri, maybe start with that, your kind of feeling towards classics.
They're very cool. I don't have very many of them. I have the William Stout ones, the only ones I've got so far. But overall, as a collector, I've been collecting so much stuff, and I really enjoyed the original figures and stuff like that. Being able to get like the William Stout figures and stuff like that from that they never made was very exciting. So I wanted to make sure that I got those. I remember I pre-ordered those, and like they kept pushing back the release date on them. I think I had them on pre-order for around a year before I actually got them in hand. And that was directly from Super 7.
Did you end up getting them all? This William Stout?
I've just got the 4.
Okay, which ones?
2 different Skeletors. The was it Rebel Leader He-Man and oh god, now I feel stupid.
It wasn't Blade, was it?
Karg?
Karg was one of them, yeah, because he was never produced.
Okay. Because they made a Sarad. I don't know if you consider that in the William Stout collection because, I don't know. But they put out Sarad Blade, and the only one as far as the 86 film that I'm lacking is Gwildor at this point. So that's the last one, and I'll have all from the 86 film. But yeah, seeing the William Stout designs coming out in that really awesome because we weren't getting them before, and how they finagled that into the classics line was pretty sweet.
This is very awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jonathan, what about classics?
When I first was looking at classics, and they were doing the subscriptions on all of that, and I was like, I just can't afford it. And I was playing Backtrack, collecting older lines anyway at the time. And then the thing that hit that changed all that, they kept saying that these will never be retail. These will never be retail. You got to get them this way or buy them from somebody who's got a subscription. And there was a bunch of them that got released at Big Lots of all places. And they were, how much did I pay for those at the time? They were under sub prices. I want to say they were like 10 or 15 bucks a piece. And I bought some there going, well, I'll get what I can get here, but that's probably going to be it for me. And then I just kept finding a deal here, a deal there, where somebody had a subscription and they needed money to put back into their subscriptions because they were either they got figures they didn't want and didn't want to keep, or they were like some of these guys that had decided that they were going to take out 3 or 4 subscriptions because the big push at the time was, if we don't get enough subscriptions, we won't be able to make this part of the line, and it'll be over with. You guys got to support this. Knowing that Mattel had all the money in the world to go ahead and put these out and put them out retail if they wanted to. They just knew that they could make money off of this setup, and so they just kept selling that idea, and guys were taking out 3, 4 subscriptions, and I was buying them as cheap as I could from those guys. That was where I started getting into like customizing, because it got to a point where we could buy up cheaper figures and swap parts around and stuff and make, entirely new characters that you dreamed up, or make a different version of a character. Like I can remember taking they had the Molar version of Skeletor with his missing tooth from the Robot Chicken sketch. And that was one of the things you could pick up at Big Lots. You could pick up that 2-pack pretty cheap. And I remember buying that 2-pack just so I could get a Skeletor. And then there was guys that were starting to make cast copies of parts and stuff. And I remember taking a cast Skeletor head and adding a tail to the hood on the back of his head and painting him up the way I kind of thought he ought to look, and putting that on his head. So that custom Skeletor head is still on that Skeletor sitting on Panther in my collection in there. And, just odds and ends, things like that for a while. And that, because of how many joints it had on, how many parts were on, and how much it was like parts that you could pop and swap.
Yeah.
There got to be a huge collectible market there where all it was guys buying for parts for customs for a long time there. And still to a degree, there's some guys doing that. Yeah. So I got big into that for a while. And that was another outlet for me, because I was already repairing the vintage ones, to fill the collection. And I started making customs because it was just a natural progression from rebuild something and make it look right to, hey, I can swap parts around and repaint things and make, an entirely new character. So I got a pretty substantial collection of those. I feel pretty lucky and blessed to have done so when I did, because now a lot of the things that I bought at reasonable, say 20, 30 bucks are now pulling 50 to 100 bucks a piece. and it's ridiculous to try and buy. And we're not even talking about carded or boxed figures. We're talking about like loose stuff that's complete is selling for, well over $100. And when I started collecting action figures, we were never made to believe that anything that was loose was worth that much. That you would have to have it, in its package, brand new, as good a shape as you could to get 100 plus on an action figure. And that's not the case now. It's just people fighting over them online and driven the price up. And new lines and cartoons and stuff has just driven up popularity of collecting it. And I've met collectors that straight up said the only reason I'm collecting it is because it's worth money.
Yeah.
And that has driven the prices up too.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the thing about classics, especially, being able to experiment, see if something was going to work or not, whether it was going to take off or not. I kind of find that interesting. If there's going to be, like, for instance, New Adventures ended up in there in some cases, like the Darius, and then they had that's probably the Skeletor, the space mutant Skeletor is probably the only New Adventures of anything that I own, actually. And I think that's actually a pretty cool looking figure. It reimagined in a way that gives him a modern take on, an animation series that really was not, like you said, didn't seem like it was very He-Man. It kind of brought it to that level where it almost could be believable.
If the vintage line had continued, and I've got art books showing like production stuff at the time, the sketch work and what they're working on. They were working on extending the line in two different directions. The one direction was what they were calling pre-Eternia, which was the ancient past and these heroes from the ancient past. And that was Hero and Eldor and the giant characters that they were working on. And the other thing that they were working on is extending the current figures off into space, off into the future. And that's where the two light up figures come from. And if you look up at the light up Skeletor, he has features that are similar to what they came up with for Skeletor when you come to New Adventures. And to a degree, even He-Man does too, because his power sword has now got this yellow plastic blade that lights up like a lightsaber. And then you go to New Adventures and he has kind of a He-Man lightsaber, So that's where they wanted to go, because they could see that toy trends were going toward kids wanting sci-fi stuff. So that's where they were wanting to head, and it didn't pan out, so they just rebooted the line. But I think it's neat to take that figure and set it next to the laser light figure and see how many design cues are really similar on those two figures. And people don't know that because, like, people came in for New Adventures. A lot of them that were collecting New Adventures and loved that never collected the original line, and vice versa. And when you try and tell them there's a connection there, that people don't believe you until you set the two figures side by side and say, look. So,
yeah, that's the cool thing about classics, being able to go in those directions. I was going to ask, actually, maybe it's just my ignorance here. Keldor, was Classics the first appearance of Keldor, or did they make a 2000X Keldor?
They mention him in one of the last mini comics made for the vintage line, and that was the one that was with Castle Eternia, the Eternia playset. And that's why a lot of people don't know that story, because not everybody had that playset. It was $100 playset when it came out in the 80s. $100 in the 80s is quite an expense. These days, somebody tells you that a playset that size is $100, and you'd be like, "Oh, that's a deal." But back then, that was a fortune. So not everybody had it. That's another reason why that's a kind of a gray line with collectors, because there weren't as many of those produced. It was produced toward like the last couple of years on the line, and it was expensive. So not everybody had it, and not everybody had that mini comic either. He's mentioned there. The name is mentioned there, but they don't really full out tell the story. And they were getting ready to try and tell that story, and the line gets killed. So it doesn't really get told until you get to the first episodes of the 2000X series.
Yeah. And as far as a figure, though, did they make a 2000X figure of Keldor? I know that
They did, but it was another SDCC exclusive.
Okay, so
And it's a nice figure. It comes with a transformational head where half his face is kind of burnt off, but it's got stuff that's streaming out from it and up, so that it looks like he's just been hit with the acid and it's still smoking.
Okay, I've seen pictures of that, but was that released with 2000X or as a SDCC, or was it?
It was an SDCC exclusive, but it was in that 2000X style. And it was around that 2000X time period. I can't remember the exact year it was released, but it's another one of those that people spend quite a bit of money to get hold of because of it, being that SDCC setup.
Yeah, and put out by Mattel directly.
Yeah.
Not like Super 7 or anything different. Okay, gotcha. And as far as after classics, I guess we kind of had Super 7 in there. Doing some kind of figures as well. They did the carded figures. They did, and of course they took over for classics, Matty Collector in place of them. Well, I wanted Everett to be on here. Unfortunately, I'm messaging to see if he's still coming or not. I guess at this point he might not be, but I really wanted to bring him in because his big thing was collecting anything Skeletor. So he bit the bullet on the Super 7 Snake Mountain, and the thing is huge. And so I've seen his setup of that thing and of all his other anything Skeletor related, just because he kind of wanted to get into MOTU collecting, but kind of focus on just Skeletor for the most part. He's got a few others like Orko and whatever else, but he went ahead and got that, and I can't remember what he ended up paying for something, but yeah, I've seen it in toy stores, and it's something like I don't know, I think the local toy collectible toy store locally had it $1,600 or something, and it's incredibly high. Yeah. So Super 7 did those. They did the classics as well. Carded figures, I do have a few, and they did the rubber band in the waist. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool to see that kind of come back. I got the crystal Man-at-Arms, which was cool to see that transformation He-Man in the when he's doing the transformation thing. Not many. I got Buzz Off, I think. What about you guys as far as Super 7 collectibles?
I ended up getting the 2-packs where you have the He-Man Skeletor and the She-Ra and Hordak. I got, and I mentioned it before, the Eldor and Hero, those two of those late line characters that they were trying to produce and didn't get done. They made those as carded figures. I've got those. Super 7 made a gold version of He-Man, not the transformation one. It's like he's a gold statue. Right. I've got that one. What was the other one I ended up with? I've got the Shadow Orko that they made, where he's like black tinted plastic, like it's clear, but it's like sunglasses plastic kind of. I mean, it's but I grabbed one or two here and there, things that I wanted, things that I liked. I didn't get everything that they've made in that series. The robot He-Man that they did from the Filmation. It's kind of Filmation's version of Faker without being the blue skin Faker. He's got no skin on his face, and you've got what looks like a robot face with the big ping pong eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
So
neat. Yeah. Yuri, what's your Super 7 reaction, or what you've collected?
Other than like the little mini reaction figures that they've made, I picked up a few of those, but I only picked up one of the actual Super 7. Looks like it's in the original packaging, and that was Orko, because there was just they had other ones there, but it's something about Orko. I'm like, I need Orko. I had so many fond memories of opening that one up when I was little and pulling the ripcord, letting him shoot across the floor and get tangled up in the carpet.
So is that Super 7 kind of a remake of the vintage Ripcord one? Oh,
Everything I saw, I didn't open it. I want to, but I didn't open it. But so far it looks like
probably
it. Yeah.
is, if I had to guess, because they tried to do as best they could to kind of match that vintage, playability of it. So that's cool to see. I wish they did something along the lines out with Origins. The hat's not even removable. So in the Origins line of that, so whatever, I guess they can make a different kind of line. Before we do get to Origins and Masterverse, Mondo, this is something else I do not have anything of because, well, my wallet's already got enough holes burned into it.
I can't afford it. They look beautiful, but man, that price tag, I just clenched my teeth and walked away.
Yeah, they're cool to look at on the shelf.
Yeah.
But yeah, not bit the bullet on anything Mondo yet. Hi. Anything Yuri Mondo?
Out of Masters of the Universe, no, I got a couple of Godzilla things. But I know the joke about Mondo is, their drop is at 10 a.m. At 9:59, it's sold out.
Right.
Yes.
I just not. I don't have the money, and I'm not fast enough.
I wonder sometimes if they even exist for collectors like us. If we're not opening up a toy store or not opening up our own scalping operation, I just wonder if they're just not even built for us.
You just got to have a good bot program.
That's what.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Snipers.
Yeah, exactly. Good job at getting whatever you got with Godzilla on Mondo, because I only know a handful of people who've been able to conquer the Mondo release and all that. Do you have a weapon? You have a weapon. Sort of power over here.
I had a buddy that was collecting the Mondo ones, and he was showing me ones that he had just bought. And I don't think he's bought anything other than either through like Big Bad Toy Store or through eBay or something like that. I don't think he's actually ordered any of them direct. And he was shelling out some big money because he loves anything that's glow in the dark to start with. So like anytime Scare Glow has popped up, he's had to have a version of it. So he was just showing me buying the Mondo Scare Glow, and I'm like, good Lord, how much money did you? Because he had bought like something like 3 to 5 Mondo figures, I think, just right before Christmas. I'm like, I just, good on you, dude. Wasn't me. I couldn't do it. Definitely not before Christmas.
No, definitely not. Yeah. So I guess enough on that. They're beautiful figures. They're I guess in some ways, like you said with the Godzilla collectors, they're not even along the lines of the X Plus, because at least in some cases, X Plus puts out enough for the collector. Not in all cases, but in some cases, they put out enough that you can pre-order and get one for yourself if you want to.
And like X Plus, you still will occasionally walk into a collectible shop and they have X Plus on the shelf, and they may only be charging maybe $5 or $10 more than what retail order was supposed to be on it. So you can kind of find those sometimes, but I've yet to see Mondo on the shelf as far as like He-Man stuff, and I would cringe as to what they would try and charge, in a collectible shop.
Yeah. I usually just am like, I'm not even looking at the price because I don't even want to know. There's just no way. But moving on from Mondo, I guess, Origins. Let's talk that. It's a cool time to be a collector to see Origins, but at the same time, like Jonathan was talking about earlier, there's just a different method to how retail is handling things than the way we were. As kids. I guess it really comes down to it. The market is just saturated with so many
That's true.
action figures. I mean, goodness gracious, you go down the action figure line and everything from Marvel DC, et cetera, Playmates and Hasbro, and everyone's got their lines of the shelf space. Who's meowing? I'm going to assume it's Yuri.
That is my cat.
Oh.
I don't know what it is, but every time I get ready to do some kind of a live chat thing, this cat goes into heat.
I really thought it might have been Yuri. He's a big fan of cats.
We've got 4 cats in the house, and this is the youngest cat, and every time, and she decided to wake up and come visit. I thought we were going to get through it. She was napping. Nope.
It's okay. It's all good. Yeah, so Origins. I've actually, been pretty good with finding Origins in the wild, but I do a lot of traveling around, so I'm always like hitting up the Walmarts and Targets and places like that to be able to find. So I'm caught up to Wave 5 with, for the most part, everything with the exception of the exclusives and vehicles to the Castle Grayskull. So been able to have had pretty good luck with Origins so far, and we've got some more Origins that we're going to be unboxing. It's just funny how the release of that, when Keldor, the Rise of Evil, and how much controversy that caused, and how it was like, this is going to be the Holy Grail, and then now you can find them discounted. Yeah. So, yeah. But, I could go on and on about Origins. Let's
they were going on and on about the Rise of Evil 2-pack. Oh, and here comes Boo. Come here, you rotten. Everybody was going on about that, and everybody was fighting about those, and I hadn't seen them, and they showed up just right before or just right after my birthday, and that's what I ended up getting for my birthday. So, but yeah, some of that stuff, it's crazy. I will see stuff in the Origins line that is brand new stuff, should have just been out, that people are showing off as on clearance wherever they're at, and that's hit or miss too. But I'm not completely caught up on it. I've got a lot of the Origins stuff now, but I wouldn't have as much as I have if it weren't for friends. Because a buddy of mine that lives in Hawaii popped up one day. He's like, "Hey, do you need these?" And I ended up getting probably somewhere between 4 and 6 figures then that I could not find anywhere here local. Another buddy of mine recently moved to Virginia, and he was out there, and he popped up. He's like, "Hey, do you have these figures?" I'm like, "No, not yet." And there wasn't any mention about whether or not he was going to grab them or not. But the next thing I know, I got this box sitting in my house that came in the mail, and he had sent me 4 figures in Landshark. So I just, if it weren't for me making connections and having friends, here and there all over the place that I've, bought, sold, and traded with, I don't think I would be as far along in that collection as I am. I've done better with the Masters WWE line that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yuri, what do you got on Origins?
Wave 1, I got. Wave 2, the Scareglow wave, I've got that. Other than that, I've been able to find most of Wave 3, which I think was Triclops, Ninjor, stuff like that. And I just had a friend who found me at Target. They had Jitsu and Buzz Off. But a scorched earth anytime I get anywhere. I don't really see a whole lot of anything. I was able to get the big set they had at Target with it was like a Battle Armor He-Man and a Battle Cat, and it came with like a little base that you put next to Castle Grayskull, and I found Castle Grayskull, and came with little gargoyles.
Mm-hmm.
Got Mosquitor, and of course I got Battle Armor He-Man and Skeletor, but other than that, I had striking out.
Was that Battlefield Warriors version of He-Man and Battle Cat that had the Grayskull pieces?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
I found that at Target in Missouri a few weeks ago.
I saw it in Target at Marion just right before Christmas, and of course I was trying to fill everybody's Christmas list, so I didn't pick it up. I was actually looking at the time for a Ram Man to buy and give as a gift to a friend, who had gifted me the Battle Armor Skeletor. And I finally had to buy him on the Ram Man online, and just so happened that it got to me by Christmas Eve, so I could go and hand it to him for a gift. But I've not seen that figure on the shelf anywhere. I've seen the 2 Battle Armors on the shelf. The Battle Armor and Battle Cat set I've seen on the shelf. But I've never seen Clamp Champ. I finally saw a Mosquitor, but that was also just right before Christmas, and so it sat and I left it there. And that was the first time I saw Castle Grayskull on the shelf that same day, and I've still not bought it yet. So
yeah, it's the Origins line. I don't know. I guess as far as the criticism, I gotta say is between the distribution, and honestly, I think the fact that maybe it is because it's new. I think the color schemes, especially, I noticed this like in Orko and Faker, the reds that they use on that, they just seem like really, really bright. Especially, I was looking at the Faker, his hair. If you've got, I don't know if you've got that one or not, but that red hair of Faker is just bright, like Ronald red.
I can't remember if I've got Faker in that line yet or not. The one that I noticed like really, really to me kind of stuck out. So I just got Webster, and the Webster was a darker blue in the line, and this one is even darker blue than the original. In fact, if in the shots that I've got, the section that I've got most of the Origin stuff in, there are 2 vintage Faker or Websters hanging from their cable attachment, from the shelf, and I hung up the Origins one there, and I don't know if you can see them right next to each other, but you can see that the Origins one is quite a bit, to my knowledge, to what I see, looks a lot darker than the original.
That's interesting. Yeah, I would almost think that they were trying to get your attention more with brighter colors and some shades. So that way, with that one, at least they went backwards. And,
it's just really, I don't know, just kind of stark dark tone. But I would say that the thing that I really enjoyed about that is the mechanism on the backpack works, and the vintage mechanism doesn't always work. Sometimes with one good solid pull, you can completely throw the gear work in that off, where it will not work, and taking it apart to fix it is really hard to do too, because it was glued together. The one in this one seems to work really well without any kind of hesitation or possible breaks in it. And the other thing that was really amazing is the original, you have the curved fist that they have on them with their thumb, and it's supposed to make it where they could, like hold a rounded object. That rifle that came with the original doesn't want to stay in there, because the thumb always puts it in a position where it pops out. This one so far seems to stay in his hand pretty well, and that was another thing I liked about it.
Yeah, maybe some of the things they've corrected from the old lines, being able to, like you said, the little things like that that they had.
Having the joints on him makes nice too, because like with him, he's hanging from that thing, but he's hanging in that pose that says I'm standing, not hanging from something. You can bend his legs back around behind him so that he looks like he is, hanging with his legs in a position that he probably would have been in if he was hanging from a cable instead of, weird standing position hanging in midair.
Right.
So
yes.
I like that about him, that you can kind of pose him a little bit. And like the originals, you could never pose He-Man with his sword in the air, because if you put it in his hand, instead of it being straight up in the air, it curves back behind him like this. With this, you can play with it and get it where it's closer to him holding it. That was the big thing that the Classics guys went on about when the first Classics He-Man came out, was that you could play with the wrist until you could get him posed where he looked like he was actually holding a sword up in the air. And
big fan of that articulation. Having an elbow joint, elbow joint and a wrist joint, you know, and that and waist joint and actually classics. The cool thing is they had that torso kind of bend to them as
torso
well.
crunch.
Yes, it wasn't just left and right. They could actually crook in different directions with the torso. So that was kind of nice, at least about classics. I understand why you might not be able to get that in a small, 6-inch figure or whatever. But being able to have wrist joints and things like that in Origins, the articulation definitely, helping out. And I don't know if you got a Grayskull from Origins or not.
I haven't yet. I've seen it in person. I just haven't. It's one of those things where when I finally saw it, there was no way I had enough money to go ahead and get it and, continue getting, everybody's Christmas gifts. So I didn't pick it up.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, it's bolder colors. I still like the vintage better. And it did a few things a little different from the original. The sorceress is kind of cool that you get with that. Looking different than what you're kind of used to in the Filmation series. So that's kind of a deviation from it, but it's not bad to have. But given the choice between a vintage one that's in good shape and complete, or Origins, obviously the vintage is better. But the sky's the limit on price that you can spend on these things. And
I know when I got in, just the little pistol that was on the weapons rack.
Yeah,
that was like a $30 item by itself. We're talking a plastic pistol that is, like half an inch to an inch long, and but it's only made for that set. It wasn't anything that they turned out in the extra weapons pack or anything. It was just in that. So if you've lost it, which is easy to do when it's a pistol that's about an inch long, and that one, it was ridiculous. I finally got hold of one, and I've done everything I can to try and make sure I don't lose that, because it is so small and so easy to lose. And but I haven't priced one in a while. Last time I priced one, it was, like I said, I think it was like 20 to 30 when I bought it, and I think the last time I priced, it was more like $40 to $50 for it. I don't even know where it's at now with all the added attention that we've gotten, from collectors. But it gets ridiculous. If I would find something where it was just a part that was in good shape from the vintage stuff, and it's at a reasonable price, I usually would buy it and set it back, because I know eventually I'm going to run into a guy who's like, well, I'm looking for this to finish this, play set off or whatever. And I would just hold on to stuff like that, to trade or to sell and make back some money and then turn it back into the collection. And it was always just back into the collection.
So, it's not a bad idea. And I was going to ask with Origins, is there anything that you'd like to see them kind of redo, remake from the vintage line, or something that's never been done before?
I'm not really sure. Because, after watching classics, they did so much in classics that had never been done before. And I'm sure there's probably some stuff that could be turned out that was made in classics but not in vintage that would be great. I think it would be nice to see Origins version of the movie characters that we were talking about. I mean, I know Super 7 finally made I'm pretty sure they finally made some vintage versions of them, but there's still then the vintage versions where there's not the extra articulation in them. They're just, you got your shoulder points and your waist point and your leg points and the head, and that's it. Basically 5 points of articulation. No, 6. But it's nice to see all of those, added pieces like that, all those different ones. And I would like to see, because I've kept Keldor and Hero on card, I would like to see them as Origins figures, because I've honestly, when I started collecting Origins, I was like, oh, I'm going to buy 2 of each, and I'm going to crack one, and I'm going to put one up in the card. I had a box of carded figures and wasn't even like doubles, and it was just out of hand. And I had to build some new shelving in there and just crack them all out and put them up on the shelving. just so I could get them out on display. And that's what I've pretty much had to do with all of that. I always thought when I moved in, we had that room, and I described it as the vault. And I thought, oh, I got all kinds of room in here. I have loads of room for years for my He-Man stuff. And now that I've got almost all my He-Man stuff up in there, I get something new, and I'm kind of struggling for a spot to put it. So I guess maybe the shelving behind me may start getting converted over to some of it, because especially like if I do get the new Gray Skull, I don't think I'm going to have room for it in the vault.
Yeah.
I'll run out of room for playsets in there, especially with Eternia set up in there, taking up that corner that it takes up.
They take up so much room. That Eternia is pretty sweet. We'll get to your videos here shortly, but I'll make this simple. We'll get to the last line and get to some of your collection here. But Masterverse, I'll just put it simply. I've gotten Wave 1 and the Skull of God, so I don't know if I'm going to continue with that or not. It's kind of up in the air, but it's not bad, the Masterverse. I do like the Faker that they made for Masterverse.
Every one of those figures I've seen so far, that I think they're really nicely made. I just haven't sunk money into them yet. Because it's one of these things where, like, I collected most of the vintage stuff up, and there really wasn't anything new coming out, and I was like buying this and that, and then hey, here's 20 lines. Keep up with it all. Good luck, and I was so there's been some things I've had to kind of make choices on what I was and wasn't buying, and I just haven't put the money into the Masterverse stuff yet.
Yeah,
it's nice. I think they've done a really good job with them. I'm really hoping, though, I think they're probably just going to make what I was referring to as He-Hulk from the cartoon. I think they're probably just going to make, basically another version of the He-Man figure as the Savage He-Man figure. I really am hoping, for it to be massive like it was in the cartoons. And if they don't, I'm probably going to go and buy a Hulk figure and make my own.
There you go. Yeah. Make your own, original figure. Yeah. So kind of putting all that aside, let's actually getting some photos that we have. I'm gonna share my screen so that we can get into them and we can kind of look through what you've got in your collection here. So hopefully I can do this without messing up our stream here. So it's one way or the other. I know I will be able to figure this out. So getting into this, just letting everyone know we did lose Yuri. I guess his internet went out. Technology is nice.
Sent a message through Messenger. I haven't looked at it yet because we were chatting, but I think he crapped out or something.
Yeah, it's just like anything else.
He said his internet went out.
Yeah, the technology is nice when it works right, but when it really fails, it really fails. So let's see if I can't get. Okay, I am going to bring up the pictures, and then we'll kind of go through them one by one. And let's see here. All right. Yeah, it doesn't look like I'm able to do that. It's the first time I've used StreamYard for this kind of application here. So one way or the other, we'll get it figured out. Apologies to everyone at home, but we will get this figured out. Share screen, window, and preview. We will share that. And it's not working. Okay. I tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to actually play the video, which is also the collection that Jonathan has. And you've actually you put some narration in the video too, right?
A little bit, yeah. And there's a run through from the cat too. So, because again, like I said, if I get ready to do anything with a video, that cat shows up, starts making noise. So
gotcha.
I can't win.
Okay, I'll get this playing.
Okay, so this is just going to kind of be a really quick walkthrough video of what I call the vault. Our house that we just bought a couple of years back had this lovely little, you can see the concrete ceiling here, basically a bomb shelter, and I already had the shelving in place, so I just started putting my He-Man collection in here. This is really the first time I've ever had it where I really fully had pretty much everything I own He-Man wise displayed in one spot. So, you know, I've got my Hot Wheels cars, the Construct figures, there's Christmas ornaments, the vintage collections in here, lots of odds and ends, and my cat's gonna show up here because she always shows up when I'm in video mode, especially when she's deciding to go into heat, which we're gonna get that fixed soon. So then, you know, I've got a lot of like a mix of 80s knockoff figures, some obscure stuff like the Flares of Tea line that was made by Top Toys after He-Man was, you know, ended in the 80s. There's, you know, some of the Super 7 stuff here. I have some of the Realm of the Underworld stuff, a bunch of the Funko 5.5-inch stuff, a bunch of 80s knockoff guys. Sorry about the lighting. That's another thing that I'm going to work on in here. Have the WWF or WWE stuff that they're doing now. Some of the Royal Subjects little minifigures. This is entirely new to me. In the past, I never collected any of the New Adventures stuff, and I recently got this guy here, Earthquake, as part of a Secret Santa gift. It was pretty cool. Something different, and I'm really thankful for it, because I mean, the only thing that's wrong, really, the bubble is cracked there on the card. But other than that, I mean, it's a complete card. It's got, even the punch is still in it. No, quit that. But I've got, you know, some odds and ends things that are different, like some posters, the record up there, Happy Meal box. I've got the Happy Meal toys up here too. I've got a bunch of the classics guys. And I know I'm kind of quickly glossing over a lot of this, but I mean, there's just so much here. It would be hard to go through without doing like a really big video or some kind of a live chat video, which I may do in the future. There's the FASA role-playing game, which is, you know, not really a role-playing game. Some of the Pop Pez stuff. You know, I've got a really big collection, and it's all kind of stuffed here into the same room. Probably the only thing that's not in here right now that I can think of that I have, I've got another boxed puzzle from this set that's on its way to me currently, that I'm waiting on. And I have the Hallmark Christmas ornaments that they put out that were in Walmart this year. They had He-Man, they had Skeletor, and they had a Hallmark pop version of Skeletor as an ornament. They're sitting right now out with the game table. I also have, there is the new Landshark for the new Origins series. I've got it in box sitting out on the game table. I haven't opened it up yet. I might open that up later. But yeah, this is it. I mean, a lot of people walk in here when they come to visit me and they're just like overwhelmed with how much stuff I've got in here. There's some things that were made to be play-along accessories. Like I've got some of these Imperial, what they called, what was it? It was Knights, Dragons, and Daggers, I think is the line that they called it. And you had these like Imperial made like a lot of rubber dinosaur toys, and they still do, if I recall right. And they made some of these like rubber animals and rubber dragons and stuff that had saddles on them, so that you could put, you know, He-Man or knockoff figures on them and have them ride around. And then like some of these vehicles down here, these were like kind of generic action accessory vehicles, but they were at a size where you could put a He-Man figure in them. So, you know, I've been grabbing those here and there when I find a deal on them here and there. I need to find a new home for that spy door there. It's an extra. It has one leg that wants to pop off because the socket's loose, but other than that, it works. It's missing one of its eye bubbles, and then it may need some new guns. But, you know, if somebody's interested in that, you know, one of you guys. But, you know, I did lots of collecting, did lots of just buy, sell, trade stuff, buying lots of things. I've had some stuff that was just handed to me. This costume here was given to me by a friend. He had it when he was a kid, and he's just like, hey, I found this at my parents' place, and you want it? And I was like, yeah, what do you want for it? No, you want it? Okay. So, you know, these are some Super 7 like PowerCon exclusives, if I remember right. I got them off of eBay and then put them in coin cases and drew up the Gray Skull Stone. So it's just a little this, a little that over, you know, quite some time, and it's all kind of focused together now in this one spot. So that's what I got going, and you know, I got other toy collections and stuff out in my office, but yeah, that's it. And you know, I'm sure there's loads of things people will look at and go, oh, what was that? What was that? But one of these days I'm going to actually do like a really good walkthrough video, and that'll probably go up on my YouTube channel with the Loosely Collected name. So thanks, guys.
And we're back. Okay, so yeah, like I told everyone watching the stream before, it is a sight to behold, and definitely looking forward to seeing when you get to, you know, something you might pre-produce later on for your YouTube channel, and so that'll be cool to see. You reminded me of some other things that are kind of peripheral MOTU collectibles, like Funko Pop and Mega, things like that.
And that's one of those things I've been chasing hard, because there's things on that just quickly disappear on that. I've never been able to get hands on the Ram Man out of that set, because that was like some kind of specific, it was Tokyo, I can't remember what the actual name is on it. Oddball license that they did for that one, and you could get it directly from them, but you had to order it. Like some of our talk a while ago about needing a good bot program, that was the kind of thing that you needed. But it was expensive when it first came out, because it was a higher price than you know, standard retail on a pop at the time. So I don't have it. When I first started seeing those pops, I didn't realize that they were something that they canceled production on. I thought it was one of those things that they just kept making. So the early 4 MOTU themed figures that they had He-Man, Skeletor, Hordak, and She-Ra. They'd been sitting around shelves, and I kept looking at them, and not buying them. And then a buddy of mine's like, oh, dude, if you want those, you better get them now, because they just you know, announced that they're you know, retiring those. And I'm like, what? And they were gone. Yeah. And they're now really expensive to buy. But, you know, there's been so many other odds and ends things that I've found and collected and added in there, and not just the action figures and the pops and the toys, is like puzzles and posters, and there's that TV tray that I've got hanging up on the wall that, like, kids don't understand that one at all, but we used to have these metal trays with fold out legs that you put over your lap, and you could then sit in the living room with the TV and eat while you're watching TV, and you had your food on this tray. Well, a buddy of mine had one and traded to me over, you know, something else that I had, and that's up there in the wall, and just
Mm-hmm.
odd things. Party favor bags that I have. I've got some sheet sets and a sleeping bag.
A lunchbox. I saw that.
Yeah, I've got a couple of the lunch boxes because they made 2 or 3 different ones there was a metal one and a couple of plastic ones, and I've got the metal one and then I've got a plastic one. But I think there's like another plastic one that I don't have.
I wish I had from my days of going to school. I had a Brave Star. You remember Brave Star?
Oh yeah,
lunchbox actually that I went to school with, and I think I was the only kid who even knew who Brave Star was because a lot of the other kids didn't care kind of about, if it wasn't He-Man, G.I. Joe, like that. But Brave Star was an odd one that it didn't really catch on, but I loved it.
I had the Lone Ranger one. They did that movie like early 80s. It was like the Legend of the Lone Ranger, I think is what it was called.
Okay.
And I think it was Gabriel Toys did action figures on that, and they turned out a lunchbox for that movie. I had that lunchbox I carried for years, and even after I stopped using it as a lunchbox, I started carrying around like crayons and markers and colored pencils and stuff like that in it to draw with until the handle completely broke on it. I think I still have the worn out lunchbox someplace, but it's one of those where it's been beat and banged so much that there's big rust patches on it from the paint chipping off of it. So
yeah, that's what I kind of want to finish out on is the peripheral kind of MOTU collecting. Someone might be, a home video collector too, especially like we're kaiju fans. So there's a lot of home video collectors. As far as MOTU, there isn't a whole lot, I'd say. I mean, they made, episodes and things on home video. Now you can get a complete series on DVD, which is really cool that they can get like the whole series of He-Man, She-Ra, 2000X, things like that. I haven't seen a New Adventure, but it's out there on YouTube. You can just watch it.
I think you can get it because they did a set where it was Filmation, the New Adventures, and the 2000X series, and it's all in like series case boxes. And if you take the case boxes, they go into a slip cover. If they're all in slipcover in correct order, then it makes this big picture of like Castle Grayskull and a bunch of stuff across the edges of the spines on the cases. So I know it's out there, but you have to kind of buy that big set to get that, and I still don't have that set.
Okay. But there's things like the home movie collectors. I'm a home video collector of rare things like Laserdisc. And there's a few Laserdiscs of the Filmation series. I'm still trying to find that 86 movie on Laserdisc. Not that it's anything special to see on that video quality, because it's not a good quality. You got Blu-ray, it's better. But to have that large,
it is neat to look at.
Yeah.
It's kind of like having the record albums, because they are that big object with a big picture on them, and you can take them and put them up on a shelf facing out to you, so that you can see that.
Yes.
I found there's a local shop that sells odds and ends vintage stuff, and there's a lot of like media stuff that they have in there. And the back room, we were looking through their VHS and DVDs, and I found the movie on VHS, and the case the cover on it was still in pretty good shape, so I went ahead and grabbed it just to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got that too. But I don't really. I know they were putting out like in the 80s. It was a thing like VHS. You would get like 2 episodes of a cartoon on it. I mean, they were like less than half an hour long, but you get 2 of them on one VHS, and they would charge you like $30 for it at the time. It was expensive. Those would be really fun to find just to have, because they do have some interesting art on the cover sometimes, but I don't see those very often either. And I think the VHS market going south kind of pushed those into a category where everybody thought it was trash and they started throwing them away. But it's like, record albums now. They're coming back in popularity. There's people that collect them. I run into guys that are, they were just being born when I was in high school, and they're talking about how they're collecting VHS tapes. They think it's cool, and I'm like, oh, okay, you know. And I do have some, but I not to in tremendous amount. I've got a lot of old Godzilla ones on VHS, but that was just because I was collecting them at a time when that was about all you could get.
Yeah.
And I got so many of them that I didn't feel like I could let them go. So
Yeah, exactly. And then something else you brought up early on was like the toy stores that don't exist anymore. That
oh yeah,
KB Toys, Toys R Us is gone, which is more recent. Yeah, I see that up there. That's a collectible item because, again, it's from a days not long gone, because it wasn't that long ago we lost Toys R Us, but KB Toys was something in your malls. And those were just so much fun.
I spent a lot of time in KB toy stores as a kid. The only reason I have the Toys R Us sign right now, my girlfriend Kelly was working at Toys R Us. They were doing sign swap outs and stuff, and they were going to throw that metal sign away.
Yeah.
And she was like, nope, I'm taking that home. And she had it in her apartment when I started dating her. And when we moved her in, it went up on the wall in the rental that we had. And when I, could grab hold of it and set it up, I put it up there. And it's just one of those things that people would probably offer a bunch of money for it, and we wouldn't.
Yeah. No.
Wouldn't even think about parting with it because it's so cool.
Yeah. It's just the fact that we don't have that. We have to go into the department stores now to find these toys, or the collectible market. It's just kind of from a time. I guess it's just because it is what it is. It's something that we find nostalgic, and it's something that I don't know if we'll ever get back or again. Maybe Toys R Us will come back. Who knows?
We were brought up in a time, though, where everything was bought in the store. There was no online, you could order things through catalogs like Sears and JCPenney and Montgomery Ward, things like that. And I can remember my mom ordering those, and I remember getting those Christmas catalogs every year and sitting there and looking through all the cool, toy displays that they would have in those. Those are the greatest pictures ever. But we really, we didn't order stuff that much like that. Mm-hmm. And now kids are just like, well, why would you go to a store where you can just order it online? You can grab your phone right now and order it right now, and they'll ship it right to your house. Mm-hmm. I still am in that mode where I would like to go into a store, see it, pick it up, look at it, have it in my hand, and go and buy it. That experience is part of it to me, and I feel a disconnect there with just straight up ordering it online and having it shipped to my house.
There's a treasure hunt, kind of the thrill of the hunt that goes along with that. The other thing I'm, my add to that is that at least in a store, I can tell if it's damaged or not.
Well, that too.
Yeah, if it comes in shipping and it's shipped damaged and it ends up at your house, you either got to accept what it is or go through the long, arduous process of sending it back, getting a refund, getting a replacement, whatever it happens.
Yeah.
And then it might happen again. So yeah, there is something to be said about the shipping market not being really a good substitute for buying in person. Sure, you could buy other things that are shipped, and it's like it's not maybe too much in danger of being damaged. But in the collectible toys, we're pretty particular about the condition.
The Ram Man that I mentioned getting as a gift, it was just luck that he was willing to go ahead and crack the package open, because the person said, free shipping, and shipped it. But they threw it in a padded mailer with a little bit of cardboard around it, and the card on it was flat out mangled when I got it.
Right.
If I had been, a mint on card collector, I would have been mad. But the fun thing about that is you go to eBay, you can get a refund on it, but you can't complain about the seller doing that, because you can't make any kind of a negative comment on shipping if they give it as a free shipping.
Right. Yeah.
And that really bothers me, because I've had some incidents here lately where like eBay basically leaves a section, leaves the rules in favor where you can't say anything bad about what the seller did. I had a couple items I'd bought that were something else, and it was supposed to be shipped to me, and the guy was in Ohio, and shipped it to someplace in Ohio. Now he knows who he was shipping to because he obviously had the address. You don't just pick an address out of the hat and accidentally send it. So he had to have sent it to somebody else that he was shipping something to, but he wouldn't even take the time to try and make that right. And when it came down to refund time, then I couldn't give any negative feedback about the situation because I got a refund. If I hadn't been refunded, if I hadn't been, quote unquote, in their eyes, made right, then I could have said something. But I felt that other people ought to know that this guy did this and that he might do it to you too, buyer beware kind of thing. Can't say anything. And that irritates me about online buying and selling too, is that there's a lot of things like that keep you from, helping other people from being screwed over.
Yeah, well, and free shipping is whatever because they're making up their cost and just upping the cost of the item. Yeah. So it's not like they're really out.
Well, like I said, they basically paid for protection there through eBay because as soon as they say that, you can't say anything about what they did with the shipping.
I know, yeah, it's just not. It's just an underhanded way. But yeah, you're right about that, and that's your scalper market too. Is people out there predatorily, just grabbing a bunch of things they know from the store that's going to be collectible items, and it's going to go for a decent price, online that they can just is like house flipping, I guess you can call it, but on the smaller scale. So yeah, it is what it is, and it's kind of a treasure hunt, and being able to see things in person is kind of like the way we were raised. So I guess we're kind of wanting to relive some of that. We're going through now, and still.
Well, that was the thing that really excited me when they said Origins, because I felt like, hey, it's going to be like when I was a kid. I can just run into a Walmart store and buy one right there off the shelf. Dig through the cards, dig through the pegs, see what's there, grab what I want, go buy it. And that has not been the case because, like I said, first off, our stores never really carried it. And secondly, then the stores that are carrying it, quick little waves and it's gone.
Yep.
If you're not there when they open the box, you're not. And, in some of those cases, too, you have people that work in those stores that know what's going to sell. They'll go and stock the shelf. And when it gets break time, they go and grab it and buy it or put it in a layaway or whatever,
Right. Yeah. They can get it right out of the box. So yeah, there's something to be said about that too. But we're still toy collectors and toy reviewers, and I'm definitely looking forward to our next conversation that we're going to have on MOTU collecting or Godzilla collecting or some other subject that we want to pick. So I want to give you the chance to the fact that you talked about your YouTube channel. Is it established yet? Do you want to plug it?
I have a name up. I don't have any videos up. It's just called Loosely Collected. And that came from when I really got started back in collecting toys. My whole thing was not buying mint stuff because I couldn't afford it. And I honestly enjoy it more because, I have these two, Godzilla and King Kong up here. They're giant figures. They come in big boxes, but I've got them out of the box and I've got them on the shelf and they're posed, forever fighting. So I enjoy that, being able to pose them and set them up and, set up little displays and, I can always move them around and do other things with them. But when I got in, it was just a matter of, affording things. I could afford to buy loose stuff, in yard sales and different things and cobble together one nice, good, clean one by, you collect up all the parts and you put one good one together. And then whatever you had afterwards, if you had another figure you could cobble together, it might not be in as great a shape, but somebody might be interested in buying it or trading for it. And that gave you, an option to pick up, a few more things. And that was how I ran for a long time on collecting stuff. There's a big chunk of my vintage collection that came just from me saying I'm interested in this stuff. And a friend of mine from high school said her husband had a bunch he wanted to sell. Eternia and several play sets and a bunch of loose figures came out of that. And I only paid $100 for the whole pile at the time.
Yeah.
So again, it was loose collecting, and you just take stuff and you clean it and fix what you can and you put it up. And if you find something nicer later on, you swap it out. And that's where I've been going. And I couldn't afford to do the on-card collecting. So loosely collected it was. And, and that was the motto. That was how I lived. And I mean, for the most part, that's still how I live. I mean, there's a lot of these newer things I could have kept in package that I've cracked open and played with because that, like I was talking about with the Origin stuff, I started running out of room to put carded stuff up. So that was the name I went ahead and stuck with on the channel. I haven't got anything put together yet. I was trying to get some stuff filmed and edited, and that all takes time. And when you got job and family and all these other things keeping you busy, kind of slows you down from getting stuff done. But
you'll get to it. It's something that got a new year and holidays out of the way, so that's why I'm encouraging everyone out there to check out Loosely Collected on YouTube when you start getting your content, subscribe and all of that. And we're definitely going to have you back on. I imagine we'll have to have another MOTU topic of some sort because I want to bring more viewers in by baiting them with something. I'm going to have a giveaway on our next MOTU Collecting episode, and so it's going to only be for those who are viewing. So we'll have to get that message out there that our next topic will have a giveaway for some lucky MOTU collector out there. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for being on the show and sharing your collection with us and your thoughts on collecting. Yep.
No problem.
Yeah, and we're going to have you again. And then, again, check out Loosely Collected on YouTube. And since you're here, the Monster Report on YouTube. Again, our subscriber count is doing pretty good. We got 76,000 plus subscribers. So like, subscribe, comment, all those good things. Share this out there so everyone can see what we're doing. And for Jonathan and Nick Adam, and just not too long ago, Yuri, we will catch you next time on the Monster Report Live. And until next time.